Welcome to the second episode of the Castbar. Warlords of Draenor has shattered expectations, including the subscriber numbers. We have an update from last week's Reddit discussion, and WoW's 10th anniversary is upon us. We'll put on our economy hats and open the books of what garrisons and professions are changing in the economy around us. Close it out with a review of a special resting ground. Thank you, and enjoy. Hello everyone, this is the Castbar, the World of Warcraft podcast channeling your content with no interrupts. As always with me I have Evan.
Good to see you, man.
And Florian.
What's going on?
I'm still leveling. I've only worked my way to level 98 because I keep getting distracted. How are you guys working your way through Warlords?
Let's see, I'm basking in level 100 glory. It's pretty awesome, there's a lot to do, and I'm still pretty active.
And how about you, Florian?
I've gotten to level 100, currently working on heroics and trying to get my garrison fully equipped, which is a much longer process than I anticipated.
Yeah, it also just takes tons and tons of time and resources and just everything in general.
I'm just agonizing over the decisions I have to make. There's so few plots, it seems like I can't have it all. I have to make some hard choices, which I think was Blizzard's intention.
Yeah, and then also at that same time you think you want one, and then you've had it for 3 days, you're like, actually, no, this one's crap, I want something else.
Yep, a lot of trial and error and experimentation.
Well, and also some of them don't do what I thought they would do, like rank 3 enchanter studies do not allow you to DE epic items, so these random epic upgrades I get from rare mobs and stuff that I can't use because they're for agility users, I just have to vendor. I can't do anything with them. It kind of makes me sad.
Well, you have to keep the profession itself relevant in little tiny ways. I guess this is just one of those ways. I agree with that change, though, but it's easy for me to say because I have an enchanter.
Sure, but, I mean, when I get those epic upgrades and they're not for me, I wish they weren't epic upgrades so I could DE them.
Isn't that the toss-up? It's kind of a catch-22, right? I mean, you want the upgrades when they're relevant gear, but otherwise it's almost like they're inconvenient.
Yep. But I keep on getting distracted. One, I've been completing all the zones, and I'm level 98 and I just finished Talador. But I also will run into this thing of, I'll be working my way towards a quest, I'm running over to where all the mobs to kill are, and I'm like, ooh, an herb! And I'll run over and I'll pick up the herb, and then when I'm at the herb, I'll see a lumber node in sight, and I'll be like, oh man, I'm gonna go get that tree! And then I go over to that tree, and while I'm chopping the tree down, a rare spawn comes to view, and I'm like, I'm gonna go get that rare spawn! And do this about 5 times later, and I'm in the next zone over going, what was I doing? My quest objective is way over there. Start running back. Get distracted again.
You have to balance your curiosity with a little bit of focus.
At the same time, I'm still enjoying it, and I'm just collecting tons and tons and tons of things that I need for my garrison, particularly lumber, because from what I'm able to tell, you can never have enough garrison resources.
Right,
that's true.
Agree with that.
You need tons at the higher levels, and you will be blowing through that lumber, well, very slowly because it's all time-gated. But it's definitely critical to have the lumber.
No, definitely. But at least the expansion still is beautiful. I mean, it's still going well, and I still haven't lost even the slightest bit of interest, regardless of stuff like needing more resources.
Right, now I'm looking forward to the raid expansion because it seems like I'm running out of steam a little bit. I mean, I'm running out of quests to do. I've gone back and done some of the old first zone quests that I missed that are now all green and gray. But I feel like I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. I mean, there's going to be a time when there aren't any more quests for me to do. I'm just going to be doing the weekly and daily stuff.
Well, unfortunately, they can't just make it where you have limitless content. And did you go do all the level 100 quests that are in all the different zones?
I'm having a hard time kind of finding them, I guess. If there are hubs that open up when you hit level 100, then I haven't really found them yet. All I've had were the war table daily quests that I go to some of the level 100 areas.
I keep finding them by accident. I'll be like, what's this over here? Oh, it's covered in level 100 things, run away.
Yeah,
Right.
well, those areas, you get a daily quest in your garrison that takes you to those areas. I don't think there are any specific quests there. However, the same thing with questing. Like, I did all the story quests. I went through all of the major quest hubs. There's still times where I'm running around in the world, say, gathering, and I'll find just, like, one lone quest giver just sitting somewhere in the middle of nowhere who'll give me a quest. And, I thought I'd completed them all, but apparently I haven't. Like, there's so much stuff out there. It's just a lot of it isn't in quest hubs. And some of these quests are, like, really good quests. They get you followers. I found one that gave some background lore on the Dark Star that I hadn't previously found.
Sure.
It's just all this little stuff scattered throughout the world. It's not just the rares and all that, but there's just little quests hidden away, tucked in all kinds of back corners that you can find.
Right.
Well, we could talk about the random nuances and awesome things that are hidden throughout there, but we do actually have some news today, so let's move into that. So probably one of the biggest announcements from Blizzard recently is that they released their subscriber numbers after the expansion, and we broke 10 million. That's awesome. I'm excited. I just hope it stays there. What is your initial thoughts on this as a whole? Like, what did your brain immediately say when you saw that they were reporting over 10 million subscribers, Florian?
Well, the first thing I thought was that I feel validated for hating Mists of Pandaria now that everyone's come back. But on a more serious note, it's a good thing that the subscriber numbers are recovering that much. I feel that a lot of people were leaving in late Cataclysm and in Mists of Pandaria because of decisions Blizzard made with the direction the game was going in, and a lot of those people are coming back now because we're going back to basics. We're not doing this thing in a far-off land that is only vaguely related to Warcraft, but instead, like, this is back to basics Warcraft, alliance, fighting, horde, orcs versus humans. And I think that's bringing a lot of people back, especially a lot of the people who liked Warcraft before World of Warcraft. The World of Warcraft has started to deviate pretty far away from the original lore of the Warcraft games, and a lot of those people, myself included, really couldn't connect what was going on with the world that we had originally enjoyed and fallen in love with. So I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that we're coming back to Draenor and back to something that is an essential and basic part of Warcraft.
And you think that a lot of the people are just able to just remove from their minds the weird timey-wimey stuff?
I have sort of been ignoring it, because if I actually think about it as a lore nerd, it starts to bring so many complications into play that it just makes everyone's life easier if you just pretend there's no time travel at all.
Sure.
That's how I'm looking at it.
Okay. And Evan, where are you sitting at on this?
Well, I saw the chart that follows the progression of the subscriber numbers throughout all the expansions, and if I'm not mistaken, 10 million is right around the amount that we had when Mists of Pandaria released. Is that right?
No, we were much lower than that.
So it was when Cataclysm released. I remember it. I was trying to find a chart while you guys were speaking. I couldn't come up with it, but it kind of peaked right around the same time as a previous expansion peaked. I don't imagine it was Wrath of the Lich King. But at any rate, I do agree with Florian in that Mists of Pandaria might not have really resonated with a lot of different WoW players. And what I've heard anecdotally from people in my friend sphere, when I tell them I'm playing World of Warcraft actively, and I played actively all through Mists of Pandaria for the most part, they say, "Oh, Mists of Pandaria, isn't that where you do their pandas and you're in China or whatever?" I mean, kind of a lot of disdain there. The Draenor thing, going back to Orcs and Humans, Warcraft 2 or 1, resonates with a lot more people. They can get behind that. It seems cooler, and I think that's why a lot of people are subscribing now.
And I went back and looked at, I know what chart you were talking about, and we did actually have 10 million at the launch of Mists of Pandaria, and it dipped all the way down to 6.8 million, and between the third quarter of 2014 to now, so in like the last like 2 months, we've gained the 3.2 million subscribers that is being reported. Before then, besides the decline in Cataclysm, we first hit 10 million at the very middle of the Burning Crusade. We went into the Wrath of Lich King at 11.5, and it really stayed right around there, jumping up to 12 million at the end, and then just progressively dropped and dropped and dropped. But this is a very large jump.
With Warcraft being 10 years old, I think most of the subscribers are kind of seated in this pattern of check out the expansion release, because I don't think there is anything in the gaming world quite like in the World of Warcraft expansion release anymore. It's always fun. It's always new. You get to check out the new continent systems, new artwork, the new story, and then you either stay or you don't. And when the next expansion comes out, I think 90% of the players of the 10 million subscribers right now subscribed at the beginning of Mists of Pandaria 2. So I think it's kind of going to be it's like the sea turtles returning to their nesting grounds,
Well,
when the planets align.
That's one of the questions I want to ask. Why do you think they came? Like, is it purely because of the expansion, just because it's an expansion in general, or does it have to do with the characters and the lore?
That's a hard question to answer. Why exactly? I think, I don't know, Blizzard does a great job of hyping these expansions. I think they've done a great job pitching these new features, but they're marketing to two audiences. One audience is to keep the people who are already subscribed playing, and keep them looking forward and keeping them from quitting while we're dealing with the 12th, 13th, 14th month of Siege of Orgrimmar. And then they're also trying to market to the people who aren't subscribing, who used to subscribe in the past, and the people who have never played. So it's kind of like a bi- or triple-edged sword there.
Sure.
And I think that people come from different reasons. I think they try to cover as many bases as they can to get anybody who might come to buy that expansion.
So it's just an accumulation of a whole bunch of different factors.
Exactly.
And like you said, with the Siege of Orgrimmar drought of content, they have basically like vowed to not let that happen anymore, even if it means not having multiple raid tiers. Like, they've reported that they're very strongly thinking about only having 2 raid tiers in this expansion. Do you think that's a bad idea or a good idea?
Well, what do you think, Florian?
Well, I think they do 2 raid tiers. It seems to me, because of 2, that maybe they're trying to make this expansion a little shorter, because not only do we have 2 raid tiers, but we're also we've got only 2 raid tiers, and it makes it seem like things are going to be a little shorter this time around, because Blizzard has said for a long time that they wanted to go to yearly expansions, or at least somewhere less than 2 years, maybe 18 months. And this time they've promised that there wouldn't be a huge gap like there was for Siege of Orgrimmar and Icecrown Citadel and everything else in the past. So I'm thinking maybe they want to bang out the next expansion faster, maybe get it out in 18 months or a year instead of 2 years. That's the only speculation I have on it. As for the number of raid tiers, it really doesn't matter as long as the content keeps coming and flowing at a steady pace, so that they're not releasing a new raid tier too soon and making an older one obsolete.
Which is what the problem they ran into with Mists of Pandaria, because they wanted Mists of Pandaria to be their startup for this boom, boom, boom expansion, boom, boom, boom expansion, but they tried to do it too quickly, so they ran out of content to release, and then we had that huge drought.
Right. But I don't want the pace to be too quick with expansion releases, because it seems like the expansion box itself is kind of expensive, and when you start releasing them on an annual basis, that makes it even more like a content patch than an expansion, and they would be breaking this model of having big segments and moving to a model where they just release, like, for example, the Isle of Thunder as an expansion, not as a part of Mists of Pandaria expansion. And I mean, maybe they can execute that well, but I don't see it executing very smoothly in the current release culture they've established over the past 10 years, or at least over the past 5 years, even with Cataclysm.
Well, that was one of their initial concerns, not their initial concerns, but the community's initial concern with Warlords of Draenor, because with the initial, like, what they were talking about and stuff, they're like, it was going to be called the unexpansion expansion, that it was going to be just like a glorified content patch. But Draenor is huge, and there's tons to do in it. So, I mean, if they keep up on par with the way that Warlords of Draenor has been set for expansions in terms of content, I don't think that'll be a problem as long as they use what they've done in Warlords as a basis.
Right. I like having my expansions delivered as a big chunk and getting it, slammed on my face all at once and getting to experience it and getting the whiplash from the huge changes. And I like, in between expansions, I like building up my anticipation of that thing happening again. So if they released smaller expansions on a more regular basis, I think that would take away a little bit of the excitement. And I don't want the excitement to go. I think this is an exciting release, and I'd like the ones in the future to be just like it.
And if they are able to deliver this on a 18-month basis every year and a half?
That would almost be tiring. Can you imagine a continent this big? Tiring for the team, tiring for the player base. I mean, honestly, I'm kind of rampaging through this content. Even after the first week or two, I feel like I need a year or so just to digest it all, and then 6 months of just putzing around, leveling up alts. If they release such a big continent with so much to experience, then I'd have to pick one main and spend months leveling up old alts through all this content. I'm used to having quite a few characters at max level and having time to get bored with my main, to focus on alts, to build up a little bit of an army and just be ready to release with the following expansion.
Sure. Well, I'll move into my next question, and we'll give it to Florian first. Out of these 10 million, so we got this big jump of, 3 million people, do you think they'll stay?
Well, I think that's mostly depends on Blizzard and how they follow up on Warlords of Draenor's release. They've had a really strong release. A lot of people are coming back. And Warlords of Draenor, I don't know if you've looked online, but it's getting pretty rave reviews. I don't think I've seen any place that's given it less than an 8 at the lowest. And I think that there are going to be some people who leave because they'll come and they'll check it out. And just like with every expansion, they're going to decide either I really enjoy this or I don't think this is for me. I'll just wait till the next expansion, which is what happened with me when I first played Pandaria. And some of them are going to leave. I really think most of them will stay if Blizzard can follow up with quality content, if they can provide more good quests, quality raids, because right now what we're seeing is some of the best questing and gameplay, some of the best dungeons that World of Warcraft has ever seen. And if they can follow this up with more good content, I think they'll get a higher percentage of subscribers staying with the game than they have with any previous expansion release.
That makes sense. And it'll really be affected by the pace at which they set the game from here on out. Because the expansion when it first comes out is always this huge rush. Which, I'm not level 100 yet, but I've been playing a lot and I've been doing a lot, but I haven't been the hardcore smash my face against whatever will get me there the fastest, which I think leads to faster burnout. But at the same time, I know I only have 2 zones left, and once you've done all of the quests and stuff, I know it doesn't take long to get gear between, doing the heroics and stuff like that. If you have a good group, you can just smash through those pretty quick. So I do worry that I will run out of content myself, even though I'm trying to absorb all of it. So I guess we'll just see how it goes. I predict that we'll probably lose half of the people that came back. So I don't think we'll dip down to, 6, 7 million, but I think we'll go down to 8, 8.5 after the first month. Well, maybe. We have the raid coming up, so probably after the first 2 months or so. Because people want to try.
I think with the way dungeons are feeling to me, the way the heroics are feeling, I can't speak on PvP, but I think enough people are going to really enjoy the quest lines and the dungeons and enjoy the story that they're building up to. As far as I'm concerned, I'm really looking forward to defeating these raid bosses. They're already got personalities. We got the introduction of all the warlords. I think people are ready to knock them out. I feel more invested in winning the battle in this expansion than I did with Miss Pandaria at all. So I feel like the people who played for it and have stayed, or played through the starting content and have stayed this long, are going to be staying for at least High Maul. and we're not going to see a big drop off for maybe a couple months, to be honest. I think the work, most of the work has already been done. You want to create a compelling story as far as the pace of releasing stuff, the manner in which they release, the smoothness of these raid releases as far as bugs go. I think that's going to be minor when it comes to keeping subscribers compared to the work they've already done with making a compelling story.
Seems fair enough.
Yeah, I'm expecting slow drop-off. Very slow.
So just a small bleed, and then maybe it'll jump back up by the time the next expansion comes out?
Yeah, people are enamored with the new content and the expansion. They want to try it out. People who are relapsing, if you want to use that word, subscribing again after being gone for a couple of years just to experience the excitement. A lot of those people are going to realize that they don't have time to devote to an MMORPG like they used to. A lot of the original players of this game are getting older and into more responsible walks of their adult life. That's understandable. They're going to unsubscribe. People who are unhappy with the game, they're going to unsubscribe as well, but I think it's going to be a slower drop-off than what you saw with Miss Pandaria.
Yeah, there's a huge plummet in Miss Pandaria, so... But hopefully it'll retain some of that because it is, at this point, such a successful and beautiful and well-made expansion. But we do have a follow-up from some news from last week. Last week we talked about Reddit and the WoW subreddit going down and all of the hullabaloo that was involved with that. We do have a small update. Our WoW is back online. It's been taken under new management and under new advisement, and the original owner has been taken down and pushed to the side. So we now have our WoW back up to its fullest, but we already had this disbursement of the community trying to find other places, because our World of Warcraft is still active. It's still online. People are still there. What do you think this is going to mean for the Reddit community as a whole?
Well, the Reddit community as a whole is going to be still on Reddit, I believe. I don't think they're going to a different website. The cool thing about Reddit is you can just go to your different subreddits that have the community you like or have the content you like. When you have multiple subreddits devoted solely to this one MMO, it seems like it's going to be a community-based decision. I think that on the whole, the content on both of these pages is going to be pretty much the same as far as type and style. A lot of funny screenshots, a lot of announcements, achievements, people, get that they're proud of. The moderation team is going to let different stuff through. So I think that they're going to have a little bit of a different feel. Of course, I think the R WoW is going to remain a little bit more popular. They've got the themes, they got the skins, they got the age. It's an older, more developed community, and I think that they're going to get more attention, which will leave our World of Warcraft to kind of develop a smaller kind of microcosm that will have a more distinct feel and maybe a little bit more personal of a community. If you want to recognize posters, if you want to post often and be recognized, I think now would be a good time to start, making yourself known on World of Warcraft.
That seems fair. Do we think that anything like what happened will ever happen again, assuming that Blizzard maintains a consistency with itself? Florian?
Probably. When you say what happened, are you referring to the Reddit problems, or are you referring to the things that led up to the Reddit problem?
The Reddit problem itself.
It could always happen. The thing is, since anyone can be a Reddit moderator, anybody can just basically go crazy at any time if they want to and shut down the entire subreddit. I don't think it's likely to happen again. I think this was a very low probability thing to happen to begin with. And I think the new head moderator of RWell is he's more calm and reasonable. So I don't think this is going to happen again. And even if it does, there's really nothing Blizzard can do about it. They've already, when the subreddit was shut down last week, there was a Blizzard customer service rep who talked to the head mod of the RWoW community via Twitter and asked him to open it back up, and absolutely nothing happened there. So I think this community is basically completely out of Blizzard's control. They can't do anything about it. The best they can do is just hope that no one goes on a power trip.
Okay. And I think it's just really we'll just have to wait and see and just hope. I mean, that was really unexpected and rather jarring for the community. Do you think that Blizzard might, because they have employees that are set to monitor the Warcraft subreddit, do you think they might ever look into moderating it themselves as like a head moderator?
I don't know if they can do that, if they can just take over a subreddit. I think it would be a good idea of them to have sort of a liaison from the Blizzard company who works as a moderator on Reddit. I think that would be a really good way for them to interact with the community and kind of like obtain a little more say in how the subreddit community works. And at the same time, it's a good way of showing to the WoW community that we care about your community and we're actually going to come here and interact with you and talk with you.
Right. I think they should have a presence, a public persona there. I think it's an important for them to make appearances, just like they're utilizing Twitter to kind of communicate and contact their fan base. But I really don't think they ought to get onto the management team. I think that would kind of spoil the kind of spirit of the Reddit community in general. Honestly, I think they have their official forums. I think that's where they should officially moderate and pay their community managers to moderate there. As far as Reddit goes, I think they ought to have more of a hands-off approach, and when it comes to big debacles like this, maybe have an official relationship with the Reddit administration at large, because, again, the Reddit administration did step in for this situation last week.
I suppose that's fair, but at least it's up and running again. That's what really matters. I mean, the nitty-gritty of what's happening behind the scenes, the majority of the users don't care about.
Yeah, I just want to see people's molten corgis in funny situations. That's all I care about.
And good feedback, which we will be posting on Reddit, and we are accepting questions and feedback and everything on Reddit. There'll be a weekly post for our show. Throw us something on there. Anything. I don't care what it is. Bad feedback is still feedback. It allows us to know what we need to fix. But we have one more piece of news. WoW's 10th anniversary has landed, and it's interesting. We were excited, at least I was excited when it was first announced. The 10th anniversary involves everyone getting a Molten Corgi, which you should have received in the mail if you have logged on. Adorable little dog. It's awesome. You see them all over the place. The Tauren Mill versus South Shore Battleground, which if successful, they've talked about bringing is as a regular Battleground rotation, or possibly just bringing it around for every single special event. And then the big one is that they brought Molten Core up to level 100, and you can jump into it via Raid Finder with 39 other people to do it essentially as it used to be in the prime spirit of what Molten Core was. Now, have either of you gotten to do either of these special events yet?
No, the only thing I've heard about Molten Core so far is that it takes a while to do. The second thing I heard about Molten Core is that there was a bug that people are getting kicked out of the raid right before Ragnaros, so I want to let that settle down, even if it is just gossip. I want to let that settle down before I devote the time in there.
And Florian, have you jumped in yet?
No, because of the exact same reasons that Evan just brought up. And in addition to that, I don't have the item level yet. I'm very excited to go back, though. I very much like Molten Core. I've been running on a regular basis for a very long time trying to get Thunder Fury, and I'm excited about them bringing it back.
Now, I haven't done it because my highest level character is only level 98. I haven't gotten to the point where I could even think about doing it yet. Now, there is a big glaring issue that I had question-wise with it. And that was the rewards for it. Now, I know this is an anniversary event and it's a little special dungeon stuff, but the only loot from the entire thing is from Ragnaros at the very end. He'll give you a 640 helm, which, you know, for a lot of people, that's a very significant upgrade. Now, my issue with this is, now let's compare this to other special events like the Headless Horseman event or the Mid-Fire Festival, Summers, whatever, where you go fight Frost Lord Elune. those are very quick, very easy to do, and while you're not guaranteed the loot, there is a chance at it. It's a random drop. You can get it, depending on your class, you can get multiple pieces, or like the Headless Horseman, in addition to the rings, you can also get the helm if you're a plate wearer, the sword if you're an Agi one-handed sword user. This raid has multiple bosses in it, and has reportedly taken at minimum 4 hours. At minimum. And once you do it once, you get the mount and the helm, which is awesome, but that is such a huge time sink for not very much, in my opinion, for how long it takes, and that you actually have to do every single boss.
Right, and we were talking about this when we were speculating about how it would be like. We were thinking they had to divide it up into a couple instances, like the looking for raid finder. Finish the achievement, kill the first 4 bosses, queue for the next 4, and then maybe have a little tiny piece of loot or a chance at loot at the end of each wing, so to speak. But I'm kind of surprised they ended up doing it this way. And it's come with a couple problems, like we were saying. If you get kicked out of the instance halfway through, that's a big investment you just lose. And with looking for raid finder, you know how some people are. If you don't dispel, if you pull trash accidentally, that could be a big setback.
I'm honestly not looking forward to doing it. Like, I want to do it because I want the Core Hound. I really don't care about the helm, because I want the Core Hound mount, and the helm is a nice upgrade. It's a nice, awesome thing. But it's such a huge time sink for so little. That's a full raid. Like, that's longer than some people's raid times. And that's assuming it goes well, is the 4 hours.
Exactly.
Some people are reporting 6 hours, 8 hours to complete it because of wipes or problems or who knows what. This is huge, and you have to do it all at once in one sitting for one piece of gear. It's almost insulting, if you ask me.
I've heard of some guilds getting together and queuing together, and with a well-lubricated guild that listens to each other, maybe even has some experience, minimum 2 hours, or maximum. The maximum, velocity you can go through that thing is to kill in 2 hours. So I'm not entirely sure about 8 hours. Maybe if you're wiping over and over again, need to constantly wait for more tanks to show up. That's like a horror story nightmare. To me, I don't think normally if a person logs in and tries to queue this, it'll take them 8 hours. I think that's worst case scenario. I can't imagine anything going that badly.
It's Raid Finder. Isn't it just kind of always the nightmare? Isn't that kind of how it works?
Yeah, tell me about it. Go ahead.
I just would have liked to have seen, like, the bosses have a chance at drop, because it's all personal loot. That's it's all the just regular Raid Finder. You either get loot or you don't. But none of them have loot. I would have liked to have seen them have a chance to drop, like, I don't know, item level 610 gear. That's the requirement to get into, like, heroics, right? Is 610?
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and for the Molten Core experience, it's 615, I believe.
See, I would have liked to see them give something. But I don't like this idea of running up to kill Gar or Baron Geddon, and it just him literally being nothing more than an obstacle to get me to Ragnaros, to get me my one piece of gear and my mount.
Right.
Well,
right.
There's another problem with this that you have to think about, is right now everyone's running into Molten Core because it's brand new content. But several weeks down the road, since there's no reason to go back to Molten Core, there are going to be a lot less people playing it. And then people who come in later on, or people who are leveling their alts more slowly, are going to come into Molten Core, and there aren't going to be enough players to finish the raid. And most of the experienced players who played Molten Core back in the day, they're probably going to be playing it right now. So you're also going to lose out on their leadership, which is not going to be available. They're not going to be able to explain raid mechanics or to help people get through bosses or get through trash, because Molten Core has some nasty trash like the Core Hounds. And that's going to make things a lot harder for people who are doing the raid a few weeks down the road, simply because the raid has no replay value. There's no reason to go back. And I was really hoping that Blizzard would maybe have the bosses drop something, like maybe just take the stuff that dropped in the original Molten Core, the old tier gear, item level it up to maybe 610, 615, have them drop that. Or even just transmog gear. If you give me transmog tier gear, that's a reason to go back there again.
Right. Even just the level 58, level 60 version of the same gear. They don't even change the loot table. I think that would be acceptable.
Or let them drop garrison resources or Apexis crystals, since both of these things you need mountains of.
Right. I just think that Blizzard never intended this to be a permanent part of the gearing up scheme, so they wanted to release one piece of item that they could get. They can give players just to boost them a little bit during this portion of the game, but I don't think they wanted to put a whole set of item level 610 stuff in there. I mean, I think they just wanted to be kind of a bonus. I think that the main, reward from doing this is just the novelty, really, which I guess, I mean, providing the opportunity, yeah, that's cool. They certainly didn't make it mandatory. And maybe we just gotta talk about whether or not the opportunity to get a 640 helm, the opportunity to get the core helm mount is worth the kind of headache it takes to go through the thing. I think it's a pretty fair reward. I certainly don't want to do it right now, but I'd feel kind of bad if I missed out on the core helm mount, so I might do it, just for that. So in that respect, I think that the reward and the effort are kind of balanced.
When a heroic what do they drop? 630?
I'm sorry?
Is that what heroics drop? 630?
That's correct.
Yeah, item level 630 or 636 Warforged.
With that being so close to 640, the helm to me is not worth it. I mean, if you want, it's neat because no matter what class you are, you can get the Transmog Flame Helm, which currently was only available for mail and cloth users. So this allows leather and plate wearers to have the fiery helm of the Warlord, or whatever it's called, the Crown of Destruction. And so that's cool, but it's boost-wise, it's hardly even something that you can consider a boost. And the mount is cool, but that is painful to me to just think of the idea of doing these bosses over and over again without really, well, not necessarily over and over again, but fighting my way through these bosses and getting so little out of it.
Right, but you only really have to do it once, if that's all. If all you're after is the mount, you only need to do it one time. So I think it's almost just worth it,
I guess. It's better than having to pay $30 for the mount.
Oh, yeah, that's clearly true.
But,
well, then again, depends on what you feel like your free time is worth. I mean, there might be people who disagree with you there.
That's true, but it just, like I said, I'm just not looking forward to it because it just doesn't horribly feel worth it to me. I still want the Molten Core mount, so I'll still do it, but I'm not going to be excited about it. Whereas, and I think that's the thing of that the Core Hound mount is guaranteed, whereas, I got the Horseman's mount this year, but I know some people have been trying for it for 7 years and have never got it, and I'm like, that's unfortunate, but it still only took you 5 minutes tops to run every day.
Right, exactly. And if they made it a Headless Horseman-esque adventure, or rather the queuing scenario where you just teleport right to, for example, Ragnaros, and then you get the guaranteed mount, I mean, everybody and their mother would have one. Now it's a little bit gated. It's gated by that effort, that time investment. Not everybody's going to do it. It might not be as ubiquitous a mount as maybe people were originally feeling. I certainly don't want to see everybody on a gigantic core hound, So maybe this is a good thing. Maybe it's a blessing in disguise.
I feel like that is counteractive to the idea of what the WoW anniversary is, though.
Right. It is an homage to the way things used to be. It's an homage for the older players who were playing when Molten Core was around, and honestly, if you've survived through the old Molten Core and classic WoW, maybe this won't seem like such a big deal. There are some people like me, we've turned our backs on those times. I never want to suffer through a Molten Core again. In retrospect, it wasn't that good a use of my time, considering how much effort and how much time you spent into doing it, and all the time between pulls and doing the Blessing of Kings and Conjuring Water. I mean, honestly, that time is past. This is supposed to be, I think, reminiscent of those times. It's kind of like a virtual reality simulator.
Well, someone was talking about it. It's a good way for Blizzard to, almost put their middle fingers up of, do you really think you want this back? Let us show you how much it's going to be terrible.
In a fun way, though.
Maybe. I don't know. That was just my initial from what I've been reading and from what I've seen. I haven't got to experience it yet. I might get in there and think that it's a blast because it is reportedly rather difficult and I enjoy difficult things, but it's still just worrisome to me.
Right. No, I don't think this is going to be, you know, a sign of things to come. I don't think this is what High Mall is going to be like. I think this is just a fun little game. Not even as serious as the Dark Moon Fair. The Dark Moon Fair seems like pretty tongue-in-cheek fun with some rewards that you have to kind of work for. I think this is really just a silly, game that they're playing just for nostalgia's sake. I don't think we ought to take it really all that seriously. Sure, a core hound mount's a really real reward. If we want it, we can put our heads down for the 3 or 4 hours and suffer through it for old time's sake. But I'm not going to say Blizzard did this the wrong way. They really went about it in the wrong way, and I don't like this and that. I'm just going to probably do it eventually, but I'm not in a rush to do it right now.
That's fair. But I think we've pretty much exhausted the topic, so let's go into the closer look. A closer look today is based around professions, garrisons, and the economy itself. Now, because the professions, a lot of the stuff that you can make with them are time-gated, so it's not something that you can just pour a bunch of resources and get to. They're strictly limited on the amount of time that it's going to take to make each piece, because like things with living steel in Miss Pandaria, you could either just farm the mats and then alchemist once a day to eventually get them, or you were able to buy them or have other alchemists transmute them for you. Whereas the materials for stuff now is all BOP. It's soulbound to you, so there is not really a whole lot of trading it. And, just lost my train of thought. In garrisons, in the past, one of the more beneficial to your wallet professions were the gathering profession, so herbalism, mining, skinning. And they now have things like the herb garden and the mine that provide you these basic mats in excess. And what we've been seeing is a very large contrast in the value of things on the auction house and to other players. Because things like herbs and ore are so readily abundant because everyone has the mine, everyone has the herb garden, that those materials are worth so little. And then the things that they make that are time-gated through the daily cooldowns are worth way too much. Upwards of 100,000 gold for, a basic crafted piece of gear. But some professions are hit in a much different way, like enchanting. Because professions aren't readily making greens. You can only make maybe a couple blues and then your BOE 640 epics. So you don't have a whole bunch of random small stuff you can make, so there's not a bunch of stuff for you to disenchant, so enchanting mats are quite expensive. This is interesting because we always have the thing at the very beginning of an expansion, to where anything that is BOE right at the beginning that's easily able to get is normally always very expensive. But there's normally an in-between somewhere, which we don't have at this point in time. Florian, have you looked at this at all?
I have. It's been an interesting process for me because I have only done gathering for many, many years. I have not crafted since vanilla. So all of a sudden, my entire revenue stream has disappeared essentially overnight. However, I don't think this is entirely a bad thing. With the way garrisons are set up and professions are set up right now, it makes crafting more interesting for a player. Like, the main reason I haven't done crafting in years is because it's been very, very boring. All you do is open up a little window, pull up a list of all the stuff you can make, then click on the things you want to make and hit the Make This Stuff button. It's very heavily menu-driven. It's not interesting. It's not fun. But with the current setup we have, it's changed crafting so that it's more interesting. There are very real decisions you have to make when you set up your garrison about what professions you want to take. Do you want to double up on something that you also have the profession for? Do you want to pick some other professions to help round out the skills you already have? And a lot of the time gating means that professions are no longer sitting in a menu clicking lists of items and make this item buttons over and over and over again for hours on end. Now, crafting is as simple as telling the guy what you want and then waiting for a cooldown to happen. It's a lot easier and more accessible, and I think that, on the whole, has been a positive change. It's disrupted the markets somewhat, which is naturally going to happen anytime you have any kind of change to professions. But I think it's going to balance out in the long run.
And Evan, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, the profession changes have really hit me pretty hard. My main character right now is taking enchanting and blacksmithing, so I have the blacksmith part of it. I'm also feeling the enchanter's hurt a little bit. I've just actually gotten rid of my enchanting hut because turning draining dust into temporal crystal shards, I mean, it would be more worth my money right now to sell the dust and buy the temporal crystals off the auction house because the value of dust has gone up so much. It's just not worth it to do the work orders for those anymore. Blacksmithing, I think I agree with Florian. It's really kind of fun now. I don't make 80, mithril gloves to level up my skill just so I can farm materials to make an epic item. I'm not thinking I could have the epic item right now as long as I play for 6 hours straight mining and doing nothing but mining. It's not like I'm saying, I don't know if I want to do mining for 6 hours, so I'll wait. I'll be patient on the item. It's like the old system with the level 553 epics. I can do the daily cooldown to get my hardened magnificent hide, or if I just farm tons and tons and tons and tons of leather and buy the expensive primal spirits or whatever, I can have the item today. I'm not tempted with that option. I have to wait, and that's fine. I spend less time worrying about professions, and it's kind of mandated vacation by Blizzard, and I appreciate that. with the mine and the herb garden, yeah, it's silly how low the price of ore is right now, and I really feel the pain of the people who have herb gathering and mining as their primary professions. I'm like, yeah, they're kind of shafted because of how mining's been in the past, and I don't know if this changes for the better. I don't know if anybody's ever going to need mining again. It's kind of like a useless profession now. So I'm interested in seeing what Blizzard does with that. Now, I think Blizzard's going to do something, because it seems like this was something they could not have predicted because they never did a test on a server-sized beta. They never tested anything on this scale. And I think that whereas they were really devoting a whole lot of energy into perfecting the questing and the zone build-up and the endgame content and the raids, I think the professions are something they still need to work out a few kinks with. So I'm looking forward to seeing what creative ways they change the system to make it work better.
Because the professions are still, even with these recent updates, they're still rather antiquated. I mean, their systems are still very old.
True, and you simply just can't put a couple thousand people onto a server and see how the market is affected by the Frostwolf mine or the excavation on your side.
Right. It's just surprising. I mean, because this was something that people were worried about a lot. Not necessarily because of garrisons, but they were just worried with what the economy was going to do in general. Now, we always know that there's a big spike in the price of things, but normally that biggest spike is in the gathering professions, and instead we've seen the exact opposite. It's the gathering professions are borderline worthless. And my main, I do not advise anyone get rid of herbalism or mining. If you already have them and they're already leveled up, keep them, because you don't know what is going to happen next expansion.
Right. And I'm not selling my Blackrock ore for vendor price either. I'm holding on to it, put it in the bank, because I think something is going to happen.
Well, I'm on my priest right now, and besides my alchemy cooldown, which needs 10 Blackrock ore once a day, I have no use for either of the ores. But at the same time, they're not worth anything. So I am sitting on probably 1,000 of each right now, and that's only worth like 4K total, whereas in the past 1,000 of each would be you'll just fill your bank account with gold,
right?
If you have 1,000 of a profession of material right at the beginning. But I'm holding on to it because I have alts, and those alts will be able to make things with them. So, I mean, it'll take, the standard 100 work orders to get 100 pieces of true steel or whatever the blacksmithing cooldown is. So it's still going to take its time, but I'll still have all this ore that I can just distribute between all the characters because, you need it for engineering, you need it for blacksmithing, you need it for jewel crafting. Which,
right.
With the other thing that I want to talk about, because the BOE epics that you're able to craft are normally pretty expensive right out the gate anyway. They're especially expensive right now. I mean, most of them sitting between 80 to 120k, which is just mind-boggling when I try and think of buying a single piece of gear for that much that will be, completely
obsolete.
Obsolete, thank you, that's the word I needed. Completely obsolete in a few months.
Yeah, I think right now it's weird because a lot of people stockpiled a lot of gold going into the expansion. I remember we were talking about what to do to prepare for the expansion. Stockpile gold was a choice, that some people definitely were making, and I think a lot of people are trying to get rid of these epics that are buying on equip to the highest bidder right now, and their goals are set pretty high. I think a lot of BOEs right now on my server in the first week were selling for like 80k. A lot of crafted epics, now that people are crafting their first pieces, are selling for more like 30 to 50. So it's calming down a little bit. I don't think anybody's racing to have the highest item level right now. And before too long, the prices are going to reflect their real value in this new economy. It's not going to be like, rich privilege. Anybody who has 100k to drop on a BOE can afford it, and that's what the prices are set at. That's only going to be temporary.
Well, and I think the people that are buying the 100k BOE are people that don't have 100k. They have gold cap on 3 characters, so they don't feel it. If I had 100k and someone said, I will sell you this 665 trinket for 80k, I would tell them no, because I don't want to go down to 20k for a trinket that's going to be obsolete. But the people that are sitting on tons and tons of gold that are go, oh, sure, I can spend 500k to be, as high of item level as I can be, it's probably much different for them because
this is trickle-down economics at work here. Thanks, Obama.
And it's true. I mean, WoW is a real economy in a whole. I mean, Blizzard has to look at the economy itself because they don't want it to crash. Because to some people, it's a legitimate thing that people can look at of how is the Warcraft economy doing. But it's still very striking to me when things like ore is 5 gold a piece, sometimes cheaper, often cheaper depending on the ore. Blackrock ore is worth nothing because everyone has mounds of it. Whereas things like the basic enchants for your cloak are going for like 12k, and I'm just like, whoa, that is technically not the epic enchant. That is just your basic, I guess green as a description enchant, and it's going for this absorbent amount of money.
Right, and I think that'll all kind of level out over time. One of the things I really do like that I think they did right here, and this might be a contested opinion, is that there's a lot more interaction between the different materials among the professions. For example, you said with alchemy you need black rock ore. Is that right?
Correct.
And that's something that's entirely new. I mean, alchemy always had transmutes, and there were a couple of things you needed ore for in the past, but as like a daily requirement or for your most basic materials, I think you're using a lot more fish now than you used to in the past.
It's true. For alchemy, we're using tons and tons of fish for everything, which incidentally, I am standing here fishing while we're doing this.
Interesting. Yeah, I've been doing some cooking too, and one of the cool things that's a new interaction here is I get a recipe for some chowder, and I get a recipe for some sausage, and then I get a a delicacy recipe that requires chowder and sausage, and also Talador orchid, for example,
Sure.
So it's like meta recipes that also require herbs that you use as, I guess, spices, and that's interesting, right?
That seems more appropriate to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost believable. I had to spend 5 Blackrock ore to make a Moral and Pestle, so I could grind up my own herbs to make pigments for my scribe hut. I mean, these are interesting interactions. Although there's some limitations. I've heard that the hex cloth and the leatherworking daily bind on pick up material that they're using for their epic items require Gorgon fly traps or something, some herb material, which is kind of like I don't need anything like that from blacksmithing. I just use my true iron ore. It seems a little bit unbalanced to require herbs to do the tailoring and leatherworking cooldowns. What do you feel about
I understand that that's weird, but at the same, like the fish oil and stuff for alchemy makes perfect sense. The herbs and stuff for cooking makes perfect sense. I think it's weird that I need Blackrock ore though to get my alchemical catalyst, which is our daily cooldown thing.
Mm-hmm.
And needing plants to make cloth is a little bit strange, but I think they're just trying to maintain a certain level of consistency with everything.
Right.
So, I mean, it's interesting that blacksmithing doesn't need anything extra. But
yeah. Yeah, I feel a little bit lucky, but I feel like an asshole. What do you think, Florian?
How much does it take, though?
I think maybe this was a move on Blizzard's part to try to balance out the fact that everyone now has access to a mine and an herb garden. Maybe they were thinking, if we require all of these people to need herbs or ore for professions that didn't previously require herbs or ore, then they'll hold on to the herbs and ore that they get and use those for their professions, and that'll help keep the economy in balance. That's one of the main reasons I think they did it. Obviously, it didn't work because they didn't test it thoroughly beforehand. I like the idea. I think it gives a lot more interaction between different professions, which in an open market where we didn't have all of these garrison resources, it would lead to a lot more of people buying and selling from people they usually wouldn't deal with, because normally you wouldn't have, say, an alchemist buying from a miner. But it'll lead to more market interaction once the market gets calmed down, or the mine and herb garden get nerfed, whichever comes first.
Right, and honestly, I'm thinking maybe there are parts of this system that we just haven't seen yet. Like, if you were to say Blizzard has a plan, and we just don't know what it is because it's too soon to tell. But I'm thinking, if I'm putting my lunatic crazy hat on, I'm thinking that what you have here is a system where an enchanter has access to ore and fish and herbs. And from a self-sufficient, perspective, like an enchanter doesn't have to buy it. I have ore and dust and herbs on me at all times. I can generate those things. That's something we've never had before. And also, this is a very tenuous thought. My lunatic cap is a little bit ephemeral here. It's destroying the economy from a money base, but when you think about it, my blacksmithing cooldown, my daily cooldown, and my work orders in my blacksmith hut need true iron ore. They don't need blackrock ore at all. I have way too much of that stuff. Alchemists need blackrock ore, but they don't need true iron ore. So it seems like they want us to trade with one another based on what our needs are, and our needs are going to be different depending on the buildings we have that are being different, and the professions we have which are different. So I'm thinking maybe it's less about crashing the economy and more about creating like a bartering system between players, where you give everybody a little bit of everything, and they need a lot of one thing.
Okay, well, I have two questions on this remaining. One is new. What not alchemists? Do blacksmiths have any use for blackrock ore?
Yeah. When we have a BOE epic recipe, we'll need like 100 or 150 true iron ingots and 20 true iron ore and 20 blackrock ore. But the extent to which we need true iron ore vastly outweighs that of blackrock ore. Vastly. Maybe like 1,000 to 1 or 1,000 to 100.
Okay, I know jewel crafters need blackrock ore like nobody's business. So, I mean, that could just be that blackrock ore is meant more for jewel crafters and the true iron is meant more for blacksmith things. So they're trying to avoid possibly people needing the same thing, so that, with the mine giving you both types, you can trade the majority of your blackrock ore over to jewel crafters and you can get true iron in return, like you said, with a bartering system. Now, my final question on this is, though, because one of the things that with garrisons and the garrison structures and buildings and all that they were going for, they were wanting to take away the feeling that you have to have alts. That was one of the things that they were talking about, is that with the garrisons and the way they are, they wanted it to feel like you don't need this army of alts to just purely for supplying your main character. You know, people were leveling up alts to make more farms so they could pour more resources to send to their mains to make more whatever it was in Mists of Pandaria, and they don't want to make it feel like people need to do that in Draenor. Now, my question with this is, if this is the stance that they're taking, the goal that they have, that this is what they want to do, to where you don't have to have alts, what are they going to do next expansion for this? I mean, they've already said they weren't sure at all if garrisons would have any follow-up in the next expansion. But if they want us to not feel like we have to level up all of our alts to have, 6 alts so we can ensure we have all the professions so that we can do all of the things and be this funnel to our main, what do you think they could possibly do or change to enable that next expansion? I realize that's a long ways away in terms of, what we've seen and what we can do, but it is something that is a question based on the turn that things are taking profession-wise right now.
I already put on my lunatic cap. Yeah, let Florian put on his fortune teller cap.
I will. What I think we're going to be in for is a major redesign of professions, because professions have needed a redesign for a long time. They're the only system in the entire game of World of Warcraft that is still pretty much exactly the same as it was in vanilla. Everything else in the entire game has been overhauled, with the exception of professions. And I think that we're in for an overhaul, for a redesign and a modernization of the profession system, maybe to allow players to have multiple professions, or maybe you could have, say, the 2 professions that we have now, you can do up to maximum skill, and then you can still have every other profession, but you just can't craft the very best stuff, like the garrisons, for example. I don't have inscription, but I have an inscription, Inscription hut? Scribe's quarters. I have a scribe's quarters where I can make most of the things the inscription allows people to make, but I can't make the very, very best stuff. And I think they might move to something like that to help alleviate the you have to have a million alts problem.
You also can't make the glyphs, I've noticed, because I also have the scribe's quarters, and you can't make glyphs. So, I mean, inscription is one of the really big money makers right now, because Dark Moon cards are selling like hotcakes. Most servers, they sell for 5k to 10k each. Everyone wants and needs the new glyphs. Need is a relative term. Everyone wants the new glyphs. And then, of course, they also are able to make, they're able to make jewelry? Like, they can make like a neck piece and a trinket or something like that?
That would be talk about Jewel Crafter or the Inscription still?
Inscription. I know they can make something.
The Inscription Hut, the Scribe's Quarters lets you make staves, trinkets that are blue 500 level trinkets for leveling up. They're not for endgame yet. The endgame trinket's going to be the Dark Moon deck. And then, I guess just the staffs, really.
Okay. I thought there might have been something else that people with
Offhand.
just the Scribe's Quarters couldn't make. But I don't know. I have an inscriptionist, but I haven't taken them even a single step into Warlords yet. I've not even logged into a different character besides my priest.
Here's another thing you can make with the inscription quarters is if you put a follower there, you can create forged receipts to get gold off of vendors. It's like playing Go Fish. You get a little receipt for a doodad, a green, blue, or purple level, and if you match it up with a second receipt of the same type, you can combine it to create an item that you can sell to a vendor to get gold in the amount of like 250 gold or 500 gold.
Interesting.
So it's kind of like a small little fun mini game, so you might want to put a follower at your scribe set for that.
I would love to, but I still don't have one that is a scribe. I mean, they have to know that has to be their profession, and I have 19 followers. Still don't have one that knows how to work in the scribe's quarters yet.
Looks like you need a innkeeper.
Well, unfortunately.
Just wait till you get to the Varrock. I'm not going to do spoilers because I'll ruin a storyline, but you'll get someone who can inscribe.
Yeah, and that's what I'm working on right now. So I'll get it eventually. I'm not terribly worried about it. And the inn is the other, because the inn is a medium, and it's the other one that I want for my medium plot once I'm finally able to get a tier 3. garrison. But I also know that that's still a ways away. But let's go ahead and move into the mailbag. So, you can email us at thecastbar@gmail.com, send us a tweet at castbarpodcast, or call and leave us a voicemail at 508-738-2278. And somebody do it! We don't have any mail. I made up mail for the first episode, and I didn't get a single piece of thing from anybody. I understand we're new and we're small, but ask us a question, please! So we don't have any mail this week, and I didn't really feel like generating my own questions, because I'd honestly really rather hear from you right now. So just give me something, give me anything. I will find a way to talk about it. I have to have something to put in here so that we can ask some questions or some feedback. If you want to leave us a voicemail that says we suck and for reasons X, you know what? I might put that in the mailbag so we can talk about it and maybe discuss.
Oh, we'll play it on the air.
Exactly.
This is your ticket to fame.
Depends on how many Murgle things I have to put over curse words. Yeah, just how many voice bites I have to throw over bad words. If it's just riddled with F-bombs, then I might just summarize it for us. I am going to announce.
Here's your chance to lay on us a profanity stringed comment of expletives where Murloc sounds are superimposed over your naughty words.
What the do you think you're doing? How dare you, Morlock, go and do something like that?
No, I'd like to hear that now. Oh, fantastic.
You can do it right now.
All right, maybe for next episode.
Not that kind of orc. I am going to take this little dead space right now that we have of no content to announce something that I would like to plan for. I doubt it'll happen this month since we don't have any feedback, but I am going to encourage people to leave feedback and to continuously leave feedback. I'm going to collectively take in everyone that's ever leaves us a question, a tweet, anything like that during a month. And at the end of the month, whichever episode is at the very end of the month, I am going to do a giveaway. It's going to start out as something small, probably just like the Warcraft pets. So I'll either pick one or you'll get to pick your own. So leave us feedback. And at the end of the month, you'll have a chance to win something. And this is no charge to you. This is no cost to you. This is purely just something extra for you for listening to us. I really appreciate it. This is something that, I'm very new to, but I enjoy a lot. These guys are very into it, and we want to give you, I'll call it, if you want to call it bribing you, you can say that, but it's an incentive to leave us feedback, and not just feedback, ask us questions, let us know what's going on, what you want changed. Evan said last episode that we are essentially putty in your hands right now because we picked a base for this, we picked a design, a model, and if it's not what's quite right, then it's really easy to change. We're not fully established yet. So, if you don't like a closer look as a section, then, if we get enough feedback for it, we can always just take it out because we have that power. It's our podcast. So let us know. Give us some feedback and we will do whatever we can to accommodate everyone in the best manner because we want this to be something that you want to listen to because while we enjoy it, we want you to enjoy it too. But like I said, we don't have any mail. We don't have any feedback. We got 2 followers on Twitter, so awesome there, but they didn't tweet us anything. No mail, no voicemails, no nothing. So we need something, guys.
With all the server hiccups, do you think the mailman might have just gotten lost this week?
See, the postmaster shows up in our Gmail account. And goes,
he's been working overtime. Let me tell you, if I know one thing, the postmaster has been working overtime day and night to send me my little parcels of Ender Trash and 1 gold.
You dropped this. I didn't drop it, actually. I intentionally left it on that body because I didn't want it. Well, I mailed it to you. Thanks. It was in the Twisting Nether. You should have left it there. It's worth 3 copper. But you should take it anyway. Well, I guess I will now just so I can delete your stupid piece of mail.
Seriously, no. I have a mail page about 6 pages deep, and maybe our feedback's at the end of that. I want to believe.
That would be beautiful. I would enjoy this.
We'd have to issue some apologies next episode.
You know what? I don't mind apologizing. I can do this. Anyway, let's move on to the next section. Alright, in our review section this week, last week we reviewed Shadow Labyrinth, which is a dungeon from the Burning Crusade as part of the Auchindoun chain of dungeons. So, in spirit of reviewing something from before Draenor came, we decided to review something with Draenor, and that is the dungeon Auchindoun. What Auchindoun is, it is essentially kind of like the Draenei burial grounds. It's where they take their dead. It's where they put them to rest. They don't necessarily have, graveyards. They have Auchindoun. It's this big, giant, awesome domed structure that they take all of their dead to for them to be free spirits and their bodies to be laid to rest and released and all of that kind of different stuff. It's a big, giant burial temple for the Draenei. And in our actual storyline, it gets blown up by the Shadow Council, but we get the privilege of it not being blown up when we go back in time to Draenor as it is now, and instead of getting to just go inside and walk around, it's actually been turned into a 5-man dungeon, which I believe opens at level 94, and then of course it has a level 100 heroic version. For those of you who don't know or are just now listening, we split our review section into three separate sections: ambience, which is the music, the design, the effects, the architecture, basically everything that you see and hear. Then the gameplay itself, so bosses, traps, anything that actually involves numbers, essentially. And then we also have the lore section, because almost everything in Warcraft has lore attached to it in some way. It has some significance to someone in some place, and some have more than others. But I'm a lore buff, Florian's a lore buff, Evan likes the lore but chooses not to, dive headfirst into it. So it is something that builds into a dungeon as a whole, and all of these together create our final score, which is letter grades A+ through you're horrible, get out of my face. So we will start with ambience. Florian, first take.
Auchindoun has a really nice design. It looks very drainy. It feels right. It's got some nice architecture, and of course the music is absolutely excellent. I don't think anyone would argue that. In general, Warlords of Draenor has had this sort of really good music thing going on. I like the pacing of the dungeon. I feel that was one of its stronger points. It's like, you queue for a dungeon, and you expect you're going to go in and you're just going to fight some dudes, like right off the bat.
Yeah, I think that's the normal mindset of dungeons from the past, is that it's just a thing full of loot pinatas. Let's go.
Yeah. So you just walk in, and there's no ads there. There's no enemies. You're just walking down a hallway. You walk down another hallway. It's actually quite a while before you actually get to fight anybody. And it sets a really good tone for the dungeon. It's like everything is chill, everything is in control, everything is calm and good. So then when the betrayal happens and the attack starts, it's like, oh crap. There's a big contrast from very calm to now we are fighting for our lives, which no dungeon previously has done. At least that I remember.
First, I should point out, there are spoilers in here. If you haven't done the dungeon yet, I'm sorry. We're going to be spoiling a little bit that is involved with the dungeon. There is a betrayal in there from somebody that Alliance quest with. This is very, very heavily an Alliance dungeon from what I'm able to tell. I mean, a lot of the involvement of what happens. I mean, the Auchindoun is a Draenei temple, and Draenei are Alliance-based. So, I mean, I didn't play it from the Horde side. I played it from the Alliance side, so it had a lot more meaning to me. That just a little heads up for anyone, depending on what you have and haven't done yet and which side you're on. Some things in the dungeon might not make complete sense. The betrayal that Florian is talking about is Soul Priest or Soul Binder Naomi. You quest with her in Talador, and you're assembling the Hearts of Auchindoun. and not the hearts, the heart, which has been broken into different shards. And she gives you a little bit of a heads up that she's crazy. And then you go in there and she's crazy, and then she attacks you, and yeah, it's bad. Evan, ambience.
Ooh, really liked it. I really like the feel of this dungeon. I wish I could forget it and experience it for the first time over again because it blindsided me. The craziness and the setup and the cinematic scenes, really fantastic. A+.
I have not stepped into a different Warlords of Draenor dungeon yet, so as the first one that I've stepped into, this one blew me away just the same. And the biggest thing that hit me in the face was the music. The music in it it's gorgeous. Like, WoW has always had good music. The music in Auchindoun is astounding. It's this real, like, serene temple chant, and it has this, like, sad but powerful effect in it, and it builds this energy, and it for me was the biggest thing in the ambiance.
Right, and it juxtaposed with the boss fights. When you're fighting Naomi herself as a second boss, I mean, the music's still playing in the background. She's having her voiceovers. It's, like, really eerie and spooky, and it's fantastic. It's very, like a cathedral, really good reverberation in there. Really good sound quality and editing on the actual recording. So I feel like it's actually coming from inside those big halls with those huge vaulted ceilings.
Feels like it actually has the echo.
Exactly.
The couple of things that I noticed with the ambience. This is one of the first times we really get to step inside, like, Draenor architecture. I mean, we have the Exodar, but, I mean, it was a broken-down ship that was part of Tempest Keep. Other than that, we don't have a whole lot of Draenei architecture anywhere that we really had reference to, because you don't get to actually go inside the Temple of Karabor, so this really gave us a view of the inside, and it's gorgeous stuff. Like, it rivals, Blood Elf and Night Elf architecture, which most people revere as, the pretty stuff. The thing that I felt was a little bit awkward, though, like, they're under attack, right? By demons and by the Shadow Council.
Mm-hmm.
They have those giant defender constructs, like the one that you fight at the very beginning, and they're just standing on the side inactive. And I'm not... Go ahead.
Well, yeah, you have defects in the, what do you call it, their order. So the order of the Auchinai priests are, corrupt, and they are probably deactivating these things so that they can do their dirty work without interference.
I suppose, but why not she was able to activate them and sick them on us. Why didn't they just do that?
That's a good point. Well, nobody attacks us until we break into that first chamber, and then afterwards, the third boss on the opposite side of the dungeon from the first fight, when you're fighting the demon in his gateway, I don't believe there are any other constructs lying dormant in that room, nor in the hallway between the two wings. Am I wrong there?
Yeah, there's actually constructs on the back walls on both hallways.
Interesting.
They're hard
to... It seems like they...
Go ahead.
Yeah. No, you go ahead.
You don't notice them right off the gate because the constructs, they, like, compact themselves up when they're deactive, so they kind of just look like neat little architecture things, but they are the actual deactivated constructs.
What do you think, Florian? Should the corrupt Auchinai priest, should they have used the constructs to fight us off, to fight the loyal Auchinai priests?
I think it would have made sense for them to do that. I don't know why it happened. Maybe there was some sort of power struggle between the two sets of Auchinai priests holding it into place, because we really have no idea how these constructs work, or on the whole, how anything in Auchindoun works. So, maybe having one set of priests making them not want to fight us kind of kept them in limbo?
Right, or maybe
we don't really know.
The defects, maybe they sabotaged the machine so they wouldn't fight at all, and that was the best they could do, for example.
Yeah, I mean, they might not have initially expected us to be in there, so instead of having them auto-activate when Demon stepped in, they just deactivated them, and then we stepped in and made a mess of the place.
Mm-hmm.
Evan, what was your grade on ambience?
Oh, A+. I really liked everything about this thing. Wouldn't have changed anything. Oh, except for a gameplay issue, but ambience, music, architecture, artwork, it's fantastic.
Florian?
I would agree with that grade. A+. It's one of the best yet in WoW.
I am going to be the naysayer here then, and I'm only going to give it a B+. While it is very good, I was this is from an expectation standpoint. I felt that Auchindoun would have been more on the inside than just a bunch of hallways. It just seemed like there should be something else in there, and I felt like I just like as beautiful as it was, and the music is probably the best I've ever heard in WoW. My expectations, because of the way that the Draenei work, I expected it to be more than just hallways with platforms. So I'm only going to give it a B. But that still sets us at a very solid A for ambience. Moving on to gameplay, I'll go ahead and open on this one. The bosses were great. For dungeons, I always felt that often bosses were just too much smash fests, and they don't get to do anything. And it seems as though they've avoided that pretty solidly in these dungeons. And that might just because I'm doing them at content instead of, at these over-geared item levels. But the bosses also felt like they had put more thought into them. Ads are important. You can interrupt almost everything they do. And the first boss was the one that just really just excited me the most because he did so much stuff. And hide behind shields and zones and interrupts and all kinds of stuff. He could have been a raid boss, and I would have been excited. In fact, I think there's raid bosses that had mechanics close to his. Where were you at on gameplay, Evan?
I really like the gameplay. And this goes for all the dungeons in World of Draenor right now. The behavior of the ads, where you have to pulling a pack, you have to know what abilities they have. Like, okay, I have an X ad and I have a Y ad, so I'm going to need to make sure I'm interrupting the Y so I don't get stunned, and I need to kite the X when he starts doing his whirlwind, that kind of thing. I like going back into a game where I have to pay attention and make those decisions pack by pack. As a tank, that's an important decision for me to make, and it increases my level of immersion into the gameplay, so I have to definitely say I enjoy that, the return of that feature. Like I said, I had a little bit of a gripe with the pace. It starts off really slow, and it's really good going through the first wing of the dungeon without having to fight anything. It's definitely a change, and I really like that Blizzard is always continuously looking at their dungeons and saying, what haven't we looked at? What haven't we shaken up? And this whole going right into the thing and starting by blasting out the first mobs you see is something that's ubiquitous in every single dungeon. So let's change it up, and I'm glad they're doing that. However, once the action starts and you go through the first, second, and third bosses, going from platform to platform before you fight Terran Gore slows things down a bit because it's trash before the next boss, just like that hallway of demons was. But there are only 3 or 4 of them, and so they have the health pool boosted up so high that they take so long to kill, and I feel like it really makes the pace grind to kind of a halt.
It felt
That's
almost like a mini boss, but it didn't have the balls to be a mini boss, so it was just this really awkward obstacle.
Right, it's an awkward obstacle is the best way to put it, I think. But I mean, it's still cool. I like how they're all different. I like how the destruction more like sacrifices this Voidwalker. That was pretty cool, actually. I like that. So it's interesting, but it seems like they're a little bit too much of just a HP sponge in my way. But anyway, I like the soul transporters teleporting around. I really like the demon boss. There's a Glory of the Hero achievement where you kill him without killing any of his demons that he spawns.
Ew.
And that's going to be like, dancing on eggshells, because there are those tiny little imps that disorient you if you get in their wake. And they have very little HP, so they're just going to be running wild. I'm really looking forward to trying to grind that out.
That is going to be difficult, and also because, like, in the dungeon, ads were important. You needed to take care of them, because they did things, like, even in his fight, I mean, he'd summon the Fel Guards that would do the whirlwinds, and the bigger imps that would do the Fel Blasts, and those things hurt.
Oh, wow. You know, that reminds me of the Temple of Ankh-Khet, those Nerubian Shadowcasters that would do that big Shadow Doom ball spell exactly like that, really long cast time, and if you don't manage to interrupt it, it does a heavy amount of damage. So it really excited me fighting that little pack of 5 or 6 of those big imps.
Oh,
really
man, yeah.
A lot of pressure on the DPS to interrupt those things because they'll target anybody in the reaction can be deadly.
Which one's casting?
Exactly. That's why I have the Castbars up on my little nameplates, and I always hit that V to bring those up. Makes it a lot easier. But as far as gameplay, the interest, I give it an A.
I was also disappointed with the last boss. Terrangor was not that impressive. For who he is, where he was established at, like, at bosses-wise, he was the easiest. For our group, at least, that I went with.
That seems to have been a trend through Warlord of Draenor's dungeons. I found in almost every dungeon, the final boss is much easier than all of the rest of the bosses in the dungeon. And with Terrangor, it was especially disappointing because I was expecting a massive confrontation. Terrangor is a very important character. He's a very powerful warlock. He becomes one of the first Death Knights later on. And, well, we don't know if that'll happen here, but I'll leave that for a lore discussion. And I was kind of disappointed that he wasn't much harder. I expected something on the scale of the fight we had, actually the boss fight right before is actually the level of what I expected with Terrangor, and he ended up being a fairly simple tank and spank without much mechanics.
Yep, just beat him in the face. And, I mean, he's, reportedly, like, you find him in, like, one of the little mines outside of Auchindoun, and he's, like, absorbing all the power from this crystal and from these dead souls, and then he's in there absorbing power from this and this and this and this. And I'm like, man, he should be, supercharged right now. Nope, just hit him in the face. Wait, really? Yeah, just hit him in the face. He'll die. Oh, okay.
Right. Yeah, go ahead.
Even the thing that, your UI does say, like, you should interrupt this. Well, I'm a priest. My interrupt's on a 45-second cooldown. I had already interrupted something else, and the other people weren't interrupting. It went off. It didn't do anything. And I was like, man, I wanted that to kill somebody, even if it was me.
Honestly, I think if you're looking for the challenge, and you might have to do this on challenge mode, because I think where the gameplay and difficulty is lacking in heroic mode, I already, at item level 630, feel like these heroics are a little bit easy. Challenge mode, I think, is where it's going to be at if you want that next level of difficulty. So, and honestly, challenge mode, Terrangor might be a force to be reckoned with. And honestly, I think that Infernal is chasing around a DPS the entire time. I don't know, because I'm in melee range, but I think that's what's happening too. I don't know if that guy's hard to avoid or if that trips up the person he's focusing on.
It's not hard for me as a priest. Priests are way too fast. On a little side tangent. We can have a glyph that makes our basic just filler spell give us a very large movement speed boost for like 3 seconds after we use it. And then if I don't know a priest that doesn't use the angelic feathers, and they give you a 60% movement increase for 6 seconds, and you can place 3 of them at a time, and they have charges, and it's a 10-second recharge time, so you can almost run indefinitely, it feels. Like, you get a very, like, it says that there's a 4-second downtime. I have not noticed this 4-second downtime, because with the recharge time, maybe it's affected by haste, I don't know, but I can use those to run for what feels like a very long time, so I can kite things forever, even if they're not being slowed. I'm just gonna keep running. And that filler spell, by the way, you can make it where it slows. So not only are you getting a movement speed boost, but you can also make it slow. And it's
go to the Brawlers Guild and try to fight Nibbler at rank 4, and then ask me if
no.
You tell me whether or not the Shadow Priest is still overpowered then.
Gameplay for me gets a B. I felt like the bosses were all good, but it went from awesome to awesome to because I really loved the first and the third boss. They felt very real and challenging and had good damage and good abilities. The priest and Terrangor, they just didn't feel that awesome to me. I felt like we just smacked them. And if it would have been like reverse, where first boss, second boss, meh, third boss, yeah, last boss, oh my god, that would have made more sense. But since it was this weird alternating awesome suck, it just kind of killed it for me on a gameplay perspective, because it kept on leading into, this is going to be awesome. Oh, no, it's not. Oh, yeah, it is going to be awesome. No, it's not. So, but they were still good, so I'm going to give them a B. Florian, what's your final grade on gameplay?
Overall, I would say a B+. I'm happy to see a lot of mechanics coming into the boss fights and having it actually be a little more difficult and require a little more skill. But like you said, some of the bosses were just too easy, and there was that weird pacing issue where you have your two really interesting, memorable bosses, and then you have two that are just kind of
there. And what's sad is the two bosses that are just kind of there are
the most relevant.
Yeah, the ones that actually are technically matter. I mean, one is the one that you were getting pieces and stuff for. The other one is this big bad dude, and they're just like, they're not important. What you actually care about are these other two things that are completely irrelevant to everything else in all ways.
But we might not have seen the last of Tarangor.
Which is why we're going to move into lore right now. Our scores give gameplay a B+ overall. And lore is our final review section. And Evan, would you like to start?
Yeah, I'll get my thoughts out of the way. I really like the quest lines leading up to the dungeon. Questing around Auchindoun in Talador Forest, or jungle, or
whatever.
I think they were really kind of relevant and really cool. I liked battling out the Burning Legion. I thought it was cool how they were kind of starting to pop up. The Shadow Council. I mean, I know exactly the faction of baddies that are responsible for this thing, kind of like the Twilight. What do you call it? Twilight Council? What is it called from Cataclysm?
Twilight's Hammer.
Twilight Hammer, exactly. It's like the kind of the people who are dressing in black and purple, summoning stuff that would be better left unsummoned. I think they have a pretty cool character as a bad guy. I like the Draenei characters. I like their accents especially. I think they have really good voice actors. I think the Draenei characters in the game have some of the best voice actors of the entire expansion so far, as a matter of fact.
Well, something that people have been pointing out, that it's a very subtle thing, but it's very interesting. The Draenei that are from Draenor, like the ones that are here and now, their accent is much thicker than our Draenei, because, our Draenei have technically had this exposure to a different accent, and if you hang around England long enough, you will eventually develop an English accent. That's just part of the way it works. That's why English kids have English accents, because that's the way that they hear things, and your mind eventually starts to do that.
Yeah, I didn't realize that it would be the natives that have a stronger accent, but I'll have to put that to the test. Then again, I'm not usually playing Alliance, so I don't have that much. I would actually attribute that to, I guess Draenei came out with the Burning Crusade, is that right? And them not paying very much attention to the type of voice acting they were doing, and said, let's give them a Russian kind of look, but now they're really focusing on making that characterization stronger and explaining it with the nativity. That might be a little bit of a cop-out, but no, I think the end result is still fascinating.
That small little lore tangent there.
Yeah, a small lore tangent. I mean, it adds to immersion, definitely, especially considered in those terms. But as far as my rating on the lore of the dungeon itself, I think mostly I'm intrigued by the mystery. It leaves Terran, spills some blood or whatever, and falls into a chasm. We all know that there's a lot more Auchindoun below ground because of Outland. I think there's a lot more going on there. So I'm almost certain we're going to see from him again. And that bit of intrigue, coupled with the setup in Talador and the very first sequence in the dungeon itself, get a lore rating of A for me.
Evan's just passing out those A's.
Yeah, really. I mean, I haven't passed out any yet, so.
So this is it then for like a couple of weeks. Then just nobody gets an A for a while after this.
I'm in a good mood. Auchindoun's lucky. UBRS won't fare so well.
Oh well. I can agree with you on some things. My score, I can tell you right now, is going to be a little bit lower. Like you said, Tarangor isn't dead. I mean, you don't get to kill him. You get him down to like 10% and then he falls off. It is interesting though that there is apparently all this space underneath Auchindoun, but there doesn't readily appear to be a way down there. There's also like this platform behind Tarangor, like you're bouncing to all these places and there's this platform that clearly leads into more that we don't get to go to.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if maybe we'll get another dungeon later. That would be neat. I would enjoy that, but we'll see. It's really hard to say because they are undecisive on how they want to do dungeons as a whole. There's a bunch of things with Auchindoun that bothered me though. If everyone bringing their bodies there and stuff, where are they putting them? I mean, there doesn't really seem to be like these, sarcophagi or anything anywhere at all. So, I mean, if they bring every Draenei body here, do they just toss it off the side? It's not readily clear to me how the place works. I mean, if, there's souls in there, but we see, 4? So, where's all the rest? Did Tarangor eat them? Also, everything is centered around that giant crystal in the middle, right? The heart of Auchindoun. If that's so important, are the souls in there? It's just not ever readily made clear to me how this place actually works besides dead Draenei go here. Do you have any thoughts on that, Florian?
It's something that's been bugging me for a while now, too. One of the things I was excited for going into Talendor was more exposition on Auchindoun, because we know Auchindoun is a place of massive power. In Outlands, the Shadow Council used Auchindoun's power to basically just cause a mass explosion and devastation entirely by accident when they summoned a demon into the world. And people keep saying it's incredibly powerful, it's super great, but no one explains why it's powerful or why it's important or where the power comes from. How does it work? What do the souls do? What does this crystal do? There's no explanation for any of it. Auchindoun is just like a big mystery box, and we have no idea what's going on inside of it. I'm kind of wondering if maybe Blizzard is planning more Auchindoun for later in the expansion. If not more dungeons, then maybe an Auchindoun raid, because they've left a lot of unanswered questions open, and I'd really like to see them close it.
Well, let's see, because this is centered around taking down the warlords, right? You take out Kargath in Heimal, you take down Ner'zhul in Shadowmoon Burial Grounds. Where do we take down Gul'dan at? Have we got to take? Do we get? Is there a place where we get to kill him yet?
I'm not sure. I don't know if he's in the dungeon journal yet.
So that could possibly be it, because he's not. I know he's not in Blackrock Foundry. Is that the name of the other raid?
Right. Correct.
Yes.
Because Blackhand's in there. How many are there total? The Deadeye guy. Do we get to kill him in either of them?
Kilrog, I'm not positive.
I don't remember if and where we get to kill Kilrog. But, I mean, I know a lot of people were upset that Ner'zhul is taken out in a 5-man dungeon in the Shadowmoon Burial Grounds, but, whatever. So, I mean, we don't have a place that I've seen that we readily get to kill Gul'dan. And, I mean, if the demons are centered on Auchindoun and that's where all that is, I mean, it could easily be an Auchindoun raid later that we get to kill Gul'dan at the end.
I think that's the most likely thing, because not only do we have Gul'dan with a great interest there, but we also fought Tarangor there. And, I don't know if you guys know this or if the listeners know this, so I'm going to give a bit of background. Tarangor, who's called Tarangorfield Tarangorfiend in our timeline, he actually died during one of the early wars with the Alliance, and Gul'dan stuffed him inside of the corpse of an Alliance human soldier and created one of the first Death Knights. So I wonder if we're going to see this again, where Gul'dan becomes desperate. Maybe we've backed him into a corner, and he grabs Gorfiend, who would be dead. Maybe. We don't know if he's dead now. It really doesn't matter, because, as we've already established, he can become a Death Knight if Gul'dan feels like making him into one. So I wonder, because of that connection, whether or not Gul'dan will end up being in Auchindoun when we fight him, and whether or not when we fight Gorfiend again, if we fight him again, whether he will be one of the living at that time.
Right, and while we're on the subject, the Ner'zhul is actually the Lich King, or behind Arthas's madness, or he's imprisoned in the helmet or something. Could you go into that for me and for our listeners?
Sure, I can do that real easy. Ner'zhul was originally... He decided he didn't want to follow the word of Kil'jaeden anymore, who was influencing the orcs to take out the Draenei, and he was doing this through controlling Ner'zhul by giving him visions of his ancestors, which the shamans talked to, and he believed he was seeing his dead wife, and his wife was telling him that he needs to do all these different things. Turned out to be kill Jaden, and then Ner'zhul didn't like it because he'd betrayed shamanism, he betrayed all of the clans, and then Gul'dan took over, and Ner'zhul just became this kind of husk. And then while Gul'dan was leading everything, things happened, and then Ner'zhul was trying to lead his own little contingent, and then he decided he was going to open up more portals than just the Dark Portal, and he was going to lead the Horde to new lands to conquer, since trying to conquer our Azeroth had failed so terribly. And so he gathered everyone up and was opening these portals, and when they stepped through the portal led straight to Kill Jaden. Kill Jaden reportedly tore him apart piece by piece by piece, tearing his soul apart piece by piece, and then not letting him die, reforming him so he can relive the pain over and over again for an unsaid amount of time. And then Kill Jaden went, I think I can still make use of this guy. So he created him as the Lich King, stuck him as this broken husk soul thing at the top of Northrend, and had him control the Scourge. And then said, you're going to lead the Scourge, which is going to soften up Northrend for us to soften up the Azeroth so that my Burning Leech can go there and, destroy everything.
So, in this timeline, Ner'zhul's still a happy-go-lucky warlock who has abandoned shamanism, but doesn't really feel bad about it yet.
Well, in the Alliance storyline in Shadowmoon Valley, you see that Blackhand told him that because the Shadowmoon clan that Ner'zhul heads used to have these very powerful shadow magic and stuff, and they abandoned them because it went against the rules of shamanism. But when Blackhand became this, what he is, and Grom Hellscream and all this, and they told him that if you don't use your dark magic and call towards the dark star, we're going to kill you and your family, and we're just going to kill everyone, because if you don't work with us, you're against us. So, much to the dismay of his wife, which you actually get as a follower,
oh wow,
he goes off and starts using all of that stuff. So, and now at this point he's just pretty much lost it, and he's just yeah, I'm just gonna be an evil dude. But this does mean that, and remember that this isn't the type of timeline where anything that we do here affects our present. They're
right.
Parallel timelines. So the fact that he doesn't ever become the Lich King in this timeline just means that doesn't happen in this timeline's other Azeroth, which goes into that weird time crunch,
timey-wimey stuff.
Right.
But addressing Florian's other concern about wanting some closure on some of these stories that are started in Talador and Auchindoun, I think that with the content patch that releases Highmaul, they might do a new sort of thing where they release additional quest lines, but not quest lines specifically related to Highmaul. For example, when we had the Throne of Thunder release, we had a whole new quest area, new zone. You had the Sunreaver Onslaught and the Kirin Tor, I guess, on the Alliance side.
Kirin Tor offensive.
Everything, all of the new quest lines circled around that dungeon, the new raid. Maybe this time we'll have some Nagran quests, and maybe we'll have some Spires of Arac quests with the Eriko Outcast. Maybe we'll also have some Auchinai continuations of those storylines in addition to the Highmaul content. So maybe it'll be like a world patch more so than just a raid zone patch.
Well, and remember that, like you're saying, not all of the patches are always raids. I mean, 6.1 was and it's not 6.1, 5.1 was us crashing onto the shores and building these keeps and stuff because we're taking over Pandaria because we're evil. And in the original map of Draenor, for when they were showing it, there was this island that was to the northeast, east of Gorgron, north of Tanan Jungle. We also don't have Tanan Jungle as a zone yet, and they were also talking about the the Ogre continent that's to the southwest. So there's lots of other areas that we haven't got to yet. So we'll just have to wait and see what their plan is.
Yeah, I'm with Florian. I hope they address these stories, especially with what Auchindoun is and how it works, and what happens in the aftermath of Terrangor's meddling, so to speak. That'd be really cool.
I still have no idea how it works. Unfortunately, because of all of these questions, lore for me is just completely trashed. I mean, it had the good follow-up with the quest, but because of how much lore there is around Auchindoun, I felt as though lore just fell completely flat. It gets a D- from me.
Oh no.
Evan, you gave it an A. Florian, score? Great.
I'll give it maybe a C, because it does include some characters I really like Torangor, but that's totally my bias. I really feel they could have done more, they could have added more, not just in the dungeon, but in the storylines leading up to the dungeon in the quest zones. There could have also been more exposition on Auchindoun and what exactly is going down there. So I think a C would probably be a fair grade.
All right.
Interesting.
That puts. Go ahead.
Yeah, I guess you guys are expecting a feature film about this whole thing. I guess you think maybe Blizzard bit off a lot more than they chewed up, as far as giving us a story that was compelling and then also delivering with a lot of cool plot points and giving us a little bit of progression. I seem to think that they did a good job, encapsulating the story they started in Talador, and I got some closure. I got to fight the guy, but you guys wanted a lot more than that.
And that becomes the difference of lore buffs. I mean, me and Florian have all of this knowledge of what happens in and around Auchindoun, but we don't actually get any details on it. And we're like, yeah, we're going inside when it's not blown up. We can see what's happening, how this works. And they're like, no, it's just a room with a big crystal. Here's Terrangor, kill him, and then you're done. It's like, but what about all this place is important. Shh, you're not supposed to be in here. You're an outsider.
To each their own. It's all good.
So with that puts lore at about a C. So that brings our final score on Auchindoun to right around a B. Ambience A, gameplay B+, lore is a C. So that's around C+, not C, a B, a B+, right in that area. This is just a very good comparison. I mean, we gave Shadow Labyrinth all in all, our final grade on it was a C+. This is only one letter higher, and this is a brand new dungeon. As always, we haven't established for what we would call an A+ yet. And while I have some things of my own in mind of what might be considered an A+, I'm not going to divulge them at this time. But B+, I mean, it's all in all is a fantastic dungeon. And if you don't care about lore, I mean, if you scratched out that final grade of a C that we gave lore, this dungeon would equal out to be like an A-. So that's, an A is, it's awesome. Go run it. You should enjoy it. It's wonderful. But I mean, because there's more than just that in there, it just brings the score down a little bit because you have people like me and Florian in here that are biased. But all in all, though, from all of us, I mean, you can hear that it's a pretty great dungeon. I highly recommend it. Just if you're a lore guy, understand you're going to be sorely, sorely disappointed. Do you guys have any final comments on the dungeon?
No, I'll let the listeners experience for themselves and to relish that first look if they haven't had that first look yet, because, like I said, I wish I could forget it and then go back in the second time.
Your first steps in are quite beautiful. However, thank you for coming, everybody. That is the end of the show. If you would like to contact us, as always, the email is thecastbar@gmail.com. You can send us a tweet at castbarpodcast, or call and leave us a voicemail at 508-738-2278. Remember, we didn't have any mail. Give us something. I don't care what it is. So choose one of those. All of the music in our bumpers is done by... Now, I have been told that I am saying his name wrong. It is spelled MacLeod. I would pronounce this Kevin MacLeod. Other people are telling me it's pronounced Kevin MacLeod. That's up for your own interpretation. You can find his music at incomtech.com. It's all licensed under the Creative Commons license, so you can either disclaim his music as royalty-free and give his name and where you can find it, or you can buy it and then it's just yours to use freely. If you'd like to get a hold of me, you can either direct an email to me at thecastbar@gmail.com, or you can send me a tweet at Schwanmichael. Evan, where are people able to find you?
You can find me on Twitter at EDCWow.
Or an email to the
to the Castbar, yeah. Thecastbar@gmail.com. Or Twitter us at Castbar Podcast.
And Florian, where are people able to get a hold of you at?
They can't. I know you want them to send email. They can send it to the podcast if they want. But if they find me and send me email, I will send them back email from a Nigerian prince who's a friend of mine.
They can't. It's unable. All right. Thank you, everyone. Like I said before, please send us something. Feedback is appreciated. I will discuss feedback on the show if that's all I got, because, I mean, feedback's feedback, and it allows us to be a little bit more productive. Thank you for coming. Thank you for listening to everything. I'm really glad everyone was here. Guys, as always, take it easy, and I'll see you next week.
You are out of time.